College professor Karen Klein, her husband Eric, and 10-year-old son Isaac set out on this scenic road to visit the Grand Canyon.
Unfortunately, we got stuck in a ditch.
Karen Klein then left her husband and 10-year-old son to begin a long and dangerous journey in search of help.
Karen headed south, walking for 11 hours until she found an evergreen tree for shelter.
I was afraid to fall asleep. In my mind, if you fall asleep, you freeze to death.
Karen, Izzy, thank you guys for being here. Your story is very similar in some ways to mine, but as I was reading about it, there is an incredible amount of just insane, wild, crazy things that happened. Like, you should have had a movie out about this whole thing.
On the Today Show, when it was first featured, the person at the desk, after the story was over, she said, "So I wonder who's going to play her in the movie."
I was going to say thank you to you, because I really don't like how the media portrayed our story. And this is kind of like a real way of reframing our story, telling it from our perspective instead of the media's perspective. And I appreciate that a lot.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you guys, this is your platform. You share your story. You get it out there. I read it. It's amazing. Tell me from your perspective. Start, you were either you were going to Vegas or coming from Vegas and then going to the Grand Canyon, right?
Yeah, we went to Vegas just for Izzy's 10th birthday, as well as I had gotten promoted at work, and we thought, it'll be over the holidays, let's go to Vegas. And one of the side trips, of course, is, you see the Grand Canyon, Bryce Canyon, Canyonlands. And so we decided to spend, one night in Bryce Canyon just to see what it looks like and swing by I don't know if anyone can ever swing by the Grand Canyon, but we really just wanted we really just wanted to just go and do the touristy thing. And remember, this is 2016, so there were some things that weren't quite in regards to technology, with cell phones and GPS weren't quite what they are today. We admit in retrospect, of course, the things that we didn't do right, and that was investigate our destination. More so, we just put in, Grand Canyon Visitor Center, and our GPS led us what we thought was the way to the visitor center. And the roads began to get, they became dirt roads. And we didn't really see anyone, and we thought, this just doesn't seem right. And we then proceeded to say, look, as we were driving, I should say, that we lost the GPS. Our GPS stopped working, and this is before you just put your phone into GPS mode. It was like a GPS, you used to put them on your car. And after, I would say, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes of this, we thought, this just can't be right. And we proceeded then to stop the car and turn the car around. And at that point, it had been drizzling, and that's what the weather forecast was. It was for 40 degrees and drizzle. It was December, after all. And we then proceeded to turn the car, attempt to turn the car around. And it was quite muddy, and the road was quite muddy itself, like a unpaved road. And
like
the
an
car
old
got
Forest
stuck.
Service road or something.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
We started at Route 20, Forest Road 22, which is also called Ryan Road, and then we took a left, and we ended up on State Forest Road 226.
For us, we didn't know. We thought, well, maybe this is the way everybody goes to the Grand Canyon, and maybe it's a slow day. We didn't know that this wasn't right. We admit our ignorance, but we thought, well, oh my gosh, it's the Grand Canyon. It's one of the most visited sites in the world. We think this is like Disney World, So, and so we stopped the car and attempted to turn it around, and the car got stuck in the mud. And so we got out of the car. And we thought, okay, well, we'll get the car out. We tried to rock the car back and forth, and it was some sort of like a rental car. It was a sedan, like your typical.
It was a Kia.
Oh, a Kia?
It was a Kia. I think it was a Forte.
Okay. And we went and gathered branches from the nearby trees, and we put them under the tires, all of the things that you learn and drive around. We used the floor mats, and we just couldn't. The car was, it just, in like kind of Murphy's Law fashion, it just kept getting more and more stuck. And we thought, there's no way we're getting out of the car, getting the car out of the mud. We said, okay, so, we can't just sit here because nobody knows where we are. We don't have cell phone service, and our GPS isn't working. And we thought because I'm a recreational runner, and I thought, okay, well, there's a main road. It looked like, from what I recall, there was a main road about like 9 miles ahead. So I'll just run up and flag down some help, and then I will have somebody come in and get us. I had a bottle of water and a pack of Cheerios because it was like, 9 miles would probably take me about an hour to run to that main road. There were tire tracks. So I'm like, well, okay, great. So this road is used. And, what I'll do is, instead of standing still just waiting for someone, I thought I would start walking down the road because I thought, well, at least I'll get cell phone service. So either I'm going to, there'll be a passerby, or I'll get cell phone service because, as I mentioned, oh my gosh, we're here in the environs of the Grand Canyon. Surely there's cell phone service. And we had a major carrier, at that point. It was starting to get somewhat dark. And I thought, I'll just keep walking, and I'll get cell phone service, or someone will pass by. And it just, kept getting darker, and then it started to snow. The snow was getting deeper, and I was cold. I didn't have proper boots on. I just had they were.
Why would you?
Merrells.
You're driving. You wouldn't expect it to snow, right? Why would you? Yeah. Exactly.
Right. And I, I was getting tired and getting a bit concerned, and it was about, I would say, like 1 a.m, and the only light that I had was my cell phone, but it wasn't a cell phone flashlight. It was just the illumination of the screen. It was very difficult to see, and it was snowing very heavily. And, I was getting somewhat desperate because I didn't know which way to go. I had come to a crossroads, and I thought, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what to do. And at this point, I was hungry. I'd run out of food. I wasn't hallucinating. I don't think I was hallucinating. I wasn't in desperation, in regards to my psychological mindset. But I had been walking now for about 12 hours, and I wasn't sure where to go. And so when I was kind of exasperated, I saw like a little, and it was very dark, and I saw like a swirl in the snow, and then this little thing popped up. It looked like a cartoon. This is totally bizarre. And I said, I'm dying. Obviously, I'm dying because only dying people see these types of hallucinations. And it was this cartoon, like Ricky Tikki Tavi, the cartoon weasel, and it chortled. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know why. And I asked, like, okay, who are you? And it pointed in a direction and ran down a road. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I should go that way. And so I just kept walking. I know it's really bizarre because, I don't normally, like, I don't have these types of experiences like ever. And 2 other times when I was at Crossroads, this thing popped up and looked at me and chortled and then ran down a different road. And then I followed it. This is really bizarre. Anyway, you can edit that out if you want, but I have no idea what it was. I can't explain.
I like that.
No
That's
idea
amazing.
what that was. So anyway, at this time it was about like 4, I assume it was 4 a.m. because my cell phone lost power. And I thought, I came to a clearing. I was in woods the entire time. I came to a clearing, and I could see maybe like 500 yards. There were trees on the other side and a wide clearing, and a tiny little sign that was in the middle of the clearing. And I thought, okay, well, I just need to rest. And I found a tree, a big spruce tree, and went underneath the tree and pulled boughs around myself. And I didn't sit, but it was in a crouching position. It was afraid to fall asleep because of freezing to death. And I just thought, okay, when first light, I'll see what the sign says, see what the clearing is, but I need to stop at that point. And so I wound up, at that point, one of my shoes was very compacted with ice, and I couldn't feel my foot. It was my left foot at that point that was compacted into the shoe. And I was very cold, but I had wrapped myself up in the spruce boughs and waited for first light. And I rocked back and forth to keep warm, and I recounted. I'm a humongous Star Trek fan, and so I was recounting a Star Trek episode to keep myself awake.
Yeah, right.
But at that point, I had no. So I'd been. I'd known like a point where I thought, okay, I need to write my last will and testament. Like, it hadn't occurred to me at that time that, it was just like, okay, I'll get up and we're going to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to just keep walking and see what that sign says and see where I need to go. Just decided that, again, like the best scenario at that point was staying awake and getting help from my family. Yeah. So and at that point, I had walked, I didn't know, but they had told me afterwards that I had walked 20 miles. And at that point I'd been awake, for 12 hours because it was 14 hours. So, Izzy, do you want to tell your side?
So you left around 2:00, and then we start the waiting. It was winter, so the sun set pretty early. So around sunset, we both were worried. Me and my dad head out of the car, and it is beginning to snow. So we walk for maybe 3 or 4 hours. And
you were looking for me. They came looking for me.
But your dad didn't get out because he had just gotten over like a broken back. Am I right?
Yes, correct.
Right.
He had it was.
So you guys had like a vote. You guys decided mom's going because she's the most capable in this moment to be able to get some help.
Yeah, it was like it was a no-brainer. Like, somebody needs to walk 9 miles. Yeah, take mom. She does. That's her thing. So we head out, and then the snow starts picking up, and we walk until I would say 11 p.m. And I now know that we walked 7 miles, but I forgot a very important point. That about a mile and a half in, we were walking in the snow that had gotten to around a foot, and my shoes pretty much dissolved.
What supplies did you have, Izzy?
2 Calypso lemonades, a winter coat. I only had 2 layers on, and I'm pretty sure that's it. I had my cell phone, and my cell phone.
So you had your own cell phone back then?
Yes.
Did your dad have a phone too?
Yeah, he did. We were both.
Okay, so
So after my shoes dissolve and we are walking for maybe 3 or 4 miles, the last 3 or 4 miles have been, or the last 2 miles have been walking in what seems like a void, because the only light we have is our collective phone flashlights, and we could only see about 10-15 feet in front of us. We are yelling for help, and we are asking if there's anybody on the trail, or things like that. And eventually comes a point where our phones get too low, and we have to turn around. It's either we continue without phones or we turn around and go back to the car. And we had already gone 6 or 7 miles at this point. We make the decision that we aren't going to find her. We are too far away. We are following her tracks. We're following her footsteps. So, and we decide.
Oh, you can see footsteps at this point?
Yes, there is a lot of snow on the ground. So it must be around 11:30 p.m. We turn around, and it was a pretty grueling walk because we knew that instead of every step being closer towards mom, it was every step is closer towards failure. We eventually made it back to the car at, I would say, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. My small mind was already ready for the worst. And my dad makes the decision that once it becomes morning, that he is going to turn around and he is going to walk up FR 22/Ryan Road until he finds the last place that had cell phone reception, which was 19 miles away. My dad, he said, what you're going to do is you're going to stay in the car, you're going to run it, but make sure that the car doesn't die, and you're not going to open this door for anybody unless they are me or have a ranger badge or a police badge.
Smart dad.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to find help. And so there my father goes, who broke his back 5 months prior, I think he maybe just got out of his brace or was still in his brace. And there he goes. He's going to walk 19 miles to find reception. And I didn't know if he was going to make it. And
so you're in this car by yourself right now?
I'm in the rental car from 8 a.m. to 2:57 p.m., which at 2:57 p.m., I saw Deputy Tracy Glover of, I think, Kane County, Utah, driving in with my father in the passenger seat.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he had gotten cell phone service and called 911 because he walked back from where we came.
Wow.
And called 911, and then they questioned him. Of course, that's the first thing they do is they say, were you and your wife fighting, that sort of thing, and then wound up driving back. And to interject just one slight point is we were on a road trip, so the car had our luggage, but also I'm kind of like the quintessential road trip mom. I had snacks and I had drinks, and so there was plenty in the car, to eat and drink, blankets and all of that. Just that's a bit of an aside. And we knew not to, Izzy knew and was told that when the car was running to keep warm, to make sure the tailpipe was clear.
But Izzy, you're in this car by yourself for several hours. You don't know what's happened to mom. You don't know what's happened to dad. And how did you do that?
I kind of felt like a captive animal. I was faced with this situation that had felt way too deeply unsettling to process. I had no idea emotionally what to do. I did do a couple things when I was in the car alone from 8 to 2:57. The first thing that I did was I tried to follow my dad again. I tried to get out of the car and follow my dad. A couple times, I think 2 or 3 times. I never made it more than 10 feet because it was freezing. And at that point I had stage 1 frostbite in my right foot, and I did not have a right shoe either, so I wasn't making it anywhere. But then I tried moving the car again. I tried getting it out, and I would check on the tailpipe, like my parents said, to make sure that I didn't suffocate. But
That's smart.
Mm-hmm. I would listen to music and just scream. That was kind of a fun coping mechanism. I'm not a very religious person, but I hold my religious identity in a lot of importance, and I decided to I put a napkin on my head to make a makeshift kippah, and I decided to pray. And it was like very, very, very specific thing to pray about, but I wanted to see if I was safe by 2:00, and if I wasn't safe by 2:00, I wanted to cease in the snow. I wanted to fall into the snow, to leave this earth the way that my mother must have hours ago. So I dealt with a lot of heavy emotion because I had already thought my mom had died. And by 1:00, when it was 1:00, I gave God a second chance, and I said I extend this time to 3:00, and I did the same thing, but I said 3:00, and that's when I saw Tracy Glover, the sheriff. I saw him and my father in a lifted pickup truck, and I couldn't believe it. Finding out that my father was safe and alive, and that he had walked 19 miles in the snow, and he had brought help. It is still one of the most profound feelings of it. What felt like liberation. It felt like I was put in this virtual hell and I was dragged back out of it. I just took a moment to appreciate the fact that at least me and my dad were alive. It had been 24 hours since we crashed, and it was in between 22 and 22 hours since my mom had left. And I thought it was like it would be miraculous if she was still alive. But either way, we get to Jacob Lake where the ambulance is. I get checked out. I got medicine for my foot. So we get driven around. Me and my father get driven around by the Rangers. We like to Walmart and just Walmart and to get food and things like that. And then I fall asleep in the hotel room. We were put in a hotel. And then at 3 a.m, I get awoken by my father that they had found my mother alive. I didn't know her condition, but we both assumed it was critical. But it was one it was one of the most indescribable feelings of all time.
I bet.
I had thought that I was going to have to live my life without a mother, and I was dealing with that for the last maybe 24 hours or for however long time that she was in the snow. And we went to the hospital, and I think it was in Kanab, and we reconvened, and that's pretty much where my part of the major story ends.
One thing I wanted to add to Izzy's story is when they first called the hotel to tell Eric they found me, they said, "We found her," and then the phone went dead. So he didn't know whether they found my body or they didn't know whether they found me alive. And so they called back. It was like 3 minutes, and they wound up calling back and said, "Oh, she's alive." I think it was by satellite phone they had called from when they had found me to inform. But anyway, so I'll pick up so that when at first light, at that point, overnight underneath the tree, and it was continuing to snow. What happens, as you may be aware, having yourself been in survival situations and scenarios, is that your brain starts to go into a bit of and Izzy mentioned it, a lockdown mode. And your priorities start to narrow, into, okay, so what are we doing next? We, like, collectively, that the strategy is like, okay, Karen, like, speaking in the third person, what are we going to do? And you start prioritizing your survival, food, drink, shelter, getting to where you need to go. And at first light, I'd walked down to the clearing, and at this point, nothing had been plowed. It was about 2 feet of snow, and there was a layer of ice on top. So like and I'm about 102 pounds, you would step on it, and you'd have to punch down into it. And so it was tough walking. And I got down to in the clearing to where the sign was, and it said, Visitor Center, Northern Visitor Center, 6 miles. And I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing. There has to be somebody at the visitor center. Clearly it wasn't open, but there has to be somebody to look after the place.
Right.
And I made what I did is I made an arrow out of, took the time to take branches and made an arrow pointing to the direction that I was going, even though you could see the footprints. And, 6 miles, first light, started to walk. But at that point I was, for hydration, I was, would take boluses of snow and tuck them back in my cheek because I was to understand not to lower your core body temperature. I was hungry. I was, and I had, I mentioned it previously, but I had heard that if you drink your own urine for hydration, that's effective. I did that, and it was just as much as you would think. It was pretty gross, right? But whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And as the day went on, I was getting more and more tired. I was, what had happened is I lost my left shoe, and I only had a sock on my left foot. And again, punching through the snow. And it had gotten to the point where it started to, I saw in the distance, I saw clouds coming in. Like there was a front that was coming in. And as it turned out, in retrospect, what they said was they couldn't, because at that point, the team had been deployed to find me, which I didn't know, the search and rescue team. And they couldn't send a helicopter because of the front that was coming through. And I was getting more and more tired. I had pulled a muscle in my left leg. And so to keep moving, I had to actually physically pick up my left leg with my pants leg and move it.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I was on the Grand Canyon Highway, and I could see the road markers, but the snow was deep enough you could just see the tops. And I would say, okay, 10 steps at a time. And collectively, okay, we've got this, team, right? We've got this. Come on, Karen, let's do this. You have to, this is for your family. It's only 6 miles. I would walk 10 steps, and I would collapse, and I would pick myself up again, walk another. 10 more, until I could see something ahead of me. Like it looked like a gate ahead of me, and a small, like a ticket, where they take the tickets. It was dusk, and I remember looking around, and I went through the gate, and I saw outbuildings. I saw the ticket booth, and I was calling out. And again, I was hallucinating, and you see, not hallucinating, but like when someone is hallucinating on TV, and the effect they use on the camera is they shake it around.
Yeah.
And you're kind of that's it, right, from the person's. That's what it looked like. That's what it appeared to be. And couldn't feel my feet. I was hungry. I was stumbling. And I saw a cabin on the left-hand side that was kind of off in the woods. That was the closest that I could see, the closest building. And it had a snowmobile and a pickup truck in the driveway. And it was dusk at that point. So I thought, okay, somebody's there. And I stumbled over to it. It wasn't, I didn't go like around the road because the closest is a straight line, going over fallen trees. I knocked on the door and called, and nobody had answered. And I thought, okay, well, all right, well, it's Christmas, right? They're not home. And I couldn't open the door. And so what I did was I broke the window with my elbow, and I put my jacket down and crawled through the window and fell on the floor inside the cabin. And it was a ranger's cabin, whoever was looking after the place. But it just seemed like they were away for the holiday. Yeah. But the heat wasn't on. There was no electric. And I recall I was, again, very hallucinating at this point, stumbling around, looking for something to... all I could find was alcohol. They had a well-stocked... and there were cans of food, but I couldn't find a can opener, and I was freezing. There was no heat. There was a fireplace, but I just didn't have the wherewithal to start a fire. And so I just curled up in a ball and sat on the couch. I put a pillow in the window to prevent the cold from coming in, although it was just as cold in the cabin. And I remember hearing my heart racing, and I don't remember falling asleep, but it was about 2 a.m. where I heard a pounding on the door. Well, first I heard people yelling. I said, "There's a pillow in the door. There's a pillow in the door. Someone is in there." And then a pounding on the door. And they said, "Is somebody in there? Is somebody in there?" And they said, "Can you open the door?" And I said, "Yes." And I stumbled to the door and I opened it. And I said, "Please don't arrest me. For breaking the window. I promise I'll pay for it." That was the thing that was on my mind. Oh my gosh, they're here to arrest me. I broke the window.
Yeah.
And it was the search and rescue team. And they, took off my wet clothes, because my clothes were wet.
Wow.
And most of my wet clothes. And they bundled me up and turned on the electricity to the cabin. And they had a snowcat. That's how they were able to get to me on the Grand Canyon Highway, is they actually had to plow it. And they loaded me up on a gurney and the snowcat. I'm sorry?
How did they find you?
What? Oh, they in fact, there's footage, I believe, on their Facebook page of the snowcat following my tracks in the snow. So they were able to follow my tracks. Because Eric just said, just the most obvious, like, she's a linear thinker, the most obvious, think like a person word. They followed me with the snowcat. They followed my tracks until they got to the clearing at the gate. They saw the arrow, but they saw the snow, the tracks in the snow, and they got to the gate and they said they lost me. They're like, through the gate, they're like, "Where on earth did she go?" And they went to the ticket booth, they went to some outbuildings, and then they saw the cabin. And they looked in there, and that's when they saw the pillow that was stuck in the window and the broken glass. They took me snowcatted me out to Jacobs Lake, where an ambulance took me to Kanab. And I spent some time there. They did preliminary, like, IV blood work, and it showed that I had rhabdomyolysis from breakdown of muscle tissue. And my creatine kinase, my CK levels were 55,000, which that's where muscle breakdown. Now, if you and I just sitting here, it usually is around 50 to 75, this level in our blood. a marathon runner, it can elevate to maybe 1,000 after a race. Mine were 55,000. So it was risking of kidney failure because of this breakdown. And they said, so we need to take you to another medical center. So they wound up taking me to a bigger medical center. And the concern being, the kidney failure. But they told my husband, they said, look, don't get your hopes up. She's in critical condition and she may not survive this because of organ failure. And even though they said, like, with the initial observation of the frostbite in the left leg was like, we might have to take her leg from the knee down because of the frostbite.
Oh, man. What?
And so they had me on, IVs. They had me in the ICU, and there was a nurse came in, or administrator came in and said, it was a major network news. Like, I think it was NBC News. Like, but NBC News is here, and they would like to interview you. And I'm like, why on earth do they want to interview me? Like, what have I done?
Mm-hmm.
And because at that point I had gone, 26 miles, but I guess it had hit the search and rescue. How the news wires work, I'm not sure, but it started hitting the news wires, and it started gaining attention. And the security actually had to. Somebody tried to sneak in with a camera. Somebody tried to, a news crew tried to sneak in, and they actually had to, kind of shoo people away. And so with medication and IVs. Oh, and I should say, I was found New Year's Eve morning, 3 a.m. So at this point, it was the 24th, which I think that was part of the news, the Christmas Eve. Yeah, Christmas Eve. But that was part of the, I think the attraction, from the media's point of view, is that it was like a Christmas miracle.
Yeah,
and,
I would say that's absolutely correct. Christmas miracle for sure.
So, and they had done some, an experimental procedure as far as running, and I'm not exactly sure what it was, to try to save my foot, the one that had lost the shoe. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they were able to save my foot using this procedure. And the doctors said that they hadn't, like, my CK levels came down so quickly that they'd never seen that type of recovery before. And they had said that had I not been, like, in shape, a recreational runner, or had I been, they said if they had found me about 4 hours later, that they would have found me dead, that I would have not survived the next few hours, that they caught me just in time.
When did you guys finally reunite?
In the hospital, the initial hospital in Kanab, the small hospital. And I was like, what was your initial reaction? And I was so relieved and thrilled. It was all surreal, but I was still kind of like very much gorked, but I was very grateful. And, these things happen to other people. You don't put yourself in these scenarios until you're like, wait, did this just happen?
Yes.
So it was very surreal in that regard.
Izzy, what was your experience when you saw Mom?
Well, first, the emotional aspect was all of the loss that I had preemptively went through, what am I going to do in my life without my mother? Truly, my mother is an extremely important figure to me. Her endless positivity, the way that she would do just anything to help us. Just that goes for both of my parents, that I was just filled with this feeling of confusion that people could come together and do something like this that I thought was impossible. I first saw my mother, and I remember that she looked very flush. Her skin appeared like yellow, or just whiter than usual, more pale than usual. she appeared to be in a rough state. I could tell that she was in critical condition, and it seemed like she was very confused, but she was very, very happy to see us.
I bet.
There was a team of 15, was it 15 people that all worked together from multiple counties to save us. And I had now realized that we are now becoming national news.
Well, it garnered so much media attention, international and national media attention. It was overwhelming in a bit of a surreal way. But one of my colleagues is from Mississippi, and he said, I was home and I went to church, and the pastor the sermon was about perseverance, and he brought you up this story. And I said,
wow.
I work with her. I said, oh my God. So, I mean, it was the attention was very humbling and overwhelming, and the kindness and selflessness of the search and rescue team, the people that lived in the town where the hospital was, and just the public in general, and people say, like, well, what big picture did you find meaning in your experience, or do you, and the answer is, you just never know. You have to live every day. You have to, certainly lessons are to be learned, of course, big and small. But we haven't been back. We hope to go back. In fact, Izzy has spoken to both sheriffs as of recently, and they've offered to say, hey, we'll take you back and we'll show you where you were. And I'm rather interested, even on Google Maps, I've seen like, that's the tree where I spent the night, and this is the path that we took. So, it's we certainly aren't averse to going back. I don't think we'll go in the winter, obviously. And, we never did get that refrigerator magnet, right? Like, so we never did really go.
We never saw the South Rim.
Technically, we're at the Grand Canyon. But,
never got the magnet. Oh, man. You went through all that. You need to get a magnet.
Right.
Come on.
So, yeah, I mean, eventually, I think we'll go back. It's definitely, nowadays, they have satellite phones. They have emergency 911 calls on your phone. I mean, so there are ways that you cannot, like, that what happened to us wouldn't, to prevent. And they said that one of the reasons the search and rescue teams were so much in spirits, I think because of the holiday season, but they also said that they had just had a search and rescue where the person wasn't alive, that they found about, I think, a week before. So they were pretty, they were pretty discouraged, but by that, but they're always happy when they're able to find somebody alive, right? Sure. Yeah.
In Coconino County, in the month of December in 2016, 3 people died from cold exposure. And 3 people got saved from cold exposure. And it's very interesting. I felt like very easily that could have been us. But if I feel like if we do go back, if I have the phone that I have now, this would not have happened because it has a satellite. Mm-hmm. But guess luck of the draw.
Hey, man, all those questions come up. Yeah, I know. The what ifs, if I had only done this, did this happen this way? It's like, you know what? You're both alive. You're here. You're telling your story. Everybody's made it out, and that's cool. Have you guys had, like, movie deals or anything like that at all, or book deals or anything come your way at all? Has anybody talked about that?
People have mentioned, you should be in a movie, or they should make a movie. Even like mentioned on the Today Show when they were done with the, with the segment, they said, who will play her in the movie? I wonder who played her in the movie. And there was a survival show we were on. It's called SOS How to Survive on the Weather Channel. We were featured on that. We were on the Today Show, but. A friend offered, I know some people, maybe we could put a script together, but that fell through. But if anyone's willing, I mean,
if you're out there, if you're listening, this is like a gold mine right here. So
we were thinking, and it was Christmas time, so at least Hallmark Hall of Fame could do something schmaltzy.
Right.
Something.
Get on the Hallmark
outside the box. Yeah. You're right.
Oh man.
Sure.
Well, your guys, this is crazy. This is an insanely complex. Everything about this is just a crazy story. I for one, I'm happy that you guys are out, that you're safe, that everybody is able to talk, and these are my favorite kind of endings to stories when people survive. I don't like the alternative at all. So yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about real quick?
I saw your videos about you in the North Rim, and there was something that you said that I related to a lot, and it's that, like, in hindsight's 2020, you can go and point out everything that you did wrong or everything that you could have done differently, but at the same time, if I could go back, I relate to you in the way that you said that you would not change it. You would have it happen again. And I think I relate to that because it's just such an important life event to all of us. It is the most traumatic days of my life, and it has caused various mental health problems down the road. But it is just such a lesson in survival and perseverance and love that I would take it. I would have it go over again.
That's awesome. Yeah,
And
that's cool.
I thought the way that our story was told was kind of inadequate by the media, because I think there was a lot of very important details that got let out. The media didn't understand that how crucial my dad was. Like, I didn't read anywhere about how my dad walked 19 miles with a broken back, and how if he didn't do it, we would have gotten stuck permanently. And I think that in some cases we were kind of like, we were expressed as thrill seekers, and we weren't thrill seekers. We were just going to the Grand Canyon. And I have had a very long healing journey. I've probably gone through more than like 8 therapists, but I've healed with creation. Like, I made a YouTube video called "Nothing's Going to Change My World," and it's a cover of "Across the Universe" by the Beatles, which is a song that I listened to a lot before and after the event. So it reminds me a lot of that time. So I decided to make a cover of that song, and I made the music video about this event. I just want to thank everybody who was involved, because I want to thank my mother, because she went out when nobody else could have gone out, and I want to thank my father, because he was if he'd had acted on a longer notice, my mother would have died. And it's just so important that it's everything to me. I think the people at Coconino County and Kane County and the Rangers and the rescue team, that they are my heroes. They saved the little boy's mother in circumstances that they must have thought was going to be a body. And I can't believe it. I'm better.
That's awesome.
This has been a very important part of my life.
Karen, anything you want to close with?
Oh, it just, we appreciate your having us on, of course, and having a chance to share our story, and hopes that people will learn lessons, like whether they're inspired by it or whether they're able to learn the things not to do,
Yeah.
you know, if they find themselves in the same situation. And just ever so thankful to everyone involved in our rescue and support even thereafter. And if anyone has any ideas what that weasel could have been or who it was, you know, I'm a very spiritual person, you know, and open to lots of ideas, and who knows what it was. I don't know. Then certainly, like, let me know. But it has been quite an experience.
I got a feeling. I'm a spiritual person too, and I got a feeling some of the people in my comments will
Right.
probably chime in. So
Okay, yeah. I
there you
mean,
go.
and again, it was, and
Yeah.
as clear as I'm talking to you that I saw it, and I didn't summon it; it just appeared 3 times. Same thing, little weasel. It was, and there is no weasel indigenous to that area. It looked more like a cartoon drawing.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre.
Yeah.
It was really
Sure.
very bizarre. Who knows?
Well, I appreciate you guys. You're awesome. And your story's crazy, amazing. And I am so thankful that you guys are both, like I said, just safe and well and here. And also, you're fun people. So thanks for making this podcast and being
thanks.
on it and all that good stuff. And
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
all right.
All right, if we're ever your way, we'll stop in.
Awesome. Sounds good. Cool. All right, we'll see you on the next one. YouTube is a rabbit hole of information. So in order to solve that problem, I wrote a backpacking course where I took my 10 years of backpacking experience and the 400 YouTube videos that I filmed and condensed it down into just 18 videos and a few lessons for you to learn. All you have to do is go to my brand new website, danbeckeroutdoors.com, and look for the course.